last person on the queue to the ordinary citizen. And because you have to lead from the front. Because you have to lead from the front. I have had situations where I have had to make very difficult choices. And I'm not the kind of person to run away from making difficult choices, especially when I believe and I'm persuaded that they are the right choices. Maybe I can give you 2 examples that maybe even relate to the men and women here. When the government of Kenya decided that it was time to change the constitution, and I thought I had issues with some of the matters in that constitution, it didn't matter to me that the whole government was standing on one side. I stood on the side that I believed in. That's at the heart of making difficult decisions. Recently, we had another engagement called the BBI. Because you live in Kenya, Edmund, you must have seen at the Bomas of Kenya, I was the only person, one person, in about a congregation of 3,000 people who had a different opinion. And it didn't matter how many people were shouting at me, I still told them what I thought was the right position. And finally, I don't want to say I was right, but the circumstances have vindicated what I said. So I'm just saying, you are asking me whether I have the capacity to make difficult decisions. I was just responding to that.
But you see, one could easily say that you're playing the safe card. I stand corrected, but from where I sit, if I remember correctly, yours was not about changing, but the timing of some of the issues or concerns therein. And if we recall, yours was, if that is the will of the people, then I would take it. So, would that be saying, would that be that someone argue that you're playing safe, waiting to see where the trend would go, then you actually say and follow it?
If I was following the trend, I wouldn't be standing up to a whole mass of people, you know. But I am also a Democrat, you know. And in a democracy, you speak your truth, but when the majority have made a decision, as a Democrat from where I sit, just like in an election, you go to an election, of course with the intention of winning, but sometimes you don't win. So when you go to an election and the majority decide not in your favor, you must respect the outcome of an election. And I think that goes to the heart of some of the challenges we have as a nation, that we have situations where people do not accept the outcome of a democratic process. It doesn't mean you must agree with everybody, but it means you speak your truth. When a decision is made, you have to agree with what the majority have decided. I think that's all. I don't think that's playing safe. I think, do you think accepting the outcome of an election is playing safe?
Again, because this is the space that you're in as a politician, and you have a whole document. Let's talk BBI, for example, here. If you have a challenge, 1 or 2, does it mean the entire is wrong from where you sit? Was there anything good in BBI? Or is it all bad?
No, I didn't say everything was bad. I just pointed out what I thought were issues that needed to be dealt with. And if you got it from me that I said the whole BBI thing was bad, maybe that was not the correct position, but it had serious issues that I raised, and it's the same issues that finally the court found fault with the whole BBI process.
Let's talk matters inclusion. And here I'm looking at various constituencies. Persons with disability, women, youth. Do we see it in you? What is your promise, and how will you, practical steps will you take to deliver on the same?
I didn't understand what you said.
Matters inclusivity, about women, inclusion, persons with disability, and the youth. In your administration, the practical steps that you take to make sure that that inclusivity agenda is actually mainstreamed.
Thank you very much. Inclusivity comes in different ways and at different levels. Inclusivity, for example, at a leadership level, at a national or county or lower levels of leadership, it is one thing that I would support, that we need to amend the Constitution on matters of trying to create gender inclusivity and the other vulnerable groups inclusivity. That's one thing I would support as amending the Constitution, so that we can create greater inclusivity of women and other categories in leadership. That's number one. That's at an elective national leadership level. There are inclusivity at an appointive level. I think that's much more easy. And in my administration, by God's grace, I will make sure that I will meet the requirements of the Constitution when it comes to matters inclusivity in cabinet appointments, in all the other appointments, ambassadorial appointments, and all the other appointments. I don't find any challenge there. But the greater, in my opinion, the greater inclusivity is actually going to be provided for by the economic inclusivity. That's really where my focus will be. Inclusivity that is brought about by making sure that we fashion our economy so that it creates opportunities for the majority of our citizens. I believe very strongly that it is possible for us to fashion programs, policies, and projects that would create opportunities for jobs for our young people. Majority of our young people. We have 4 million Kenyans today who are out of school. They have certificates, they have diplomas, they have degrees, but they don't have a job. That is something that is at the heart of what I want to do for this country. We had already, with my good friend, President Uhuru Kenyatta, we had fashioned a program we called the Big Four Plan. Unfortunately, we were unable to implement that plan, whose biggest push was actually inclusivity on matters to do with jobs and opportunities for business. I have since reworked it with the help of many friends, because it was a plan that we had involved a lot of experts to come on board. For example, when you saw in the Big Four plan that we had housing, the housing plan was not about houses, as houses. The housing plan was more about how many jobs are we going to create. Experts told us labor-intensive programs like housing will give us jobs. And that's why if we target, for example, our target for Nairobi County was first phase, 100,000 houses. With 100,000 houses, we would actually create 500,000 jobs in the city of Nairobi alone if we were in that program. And for your information, we actually got commitments on that housing plan of up to 4 trillion Kenya shillings. People who are willing to invest because it's a viable plan. Unfortunately, I don't want to say, because we all live in this country, we got the good handshake, and it was then BBI, and the rest is history. It went into a place called null and void, and that is where we are at the moment. So, what am I saying? The greatest inclusivity we can have in our nation is reworking our economy and making sure that it creates the opportunities that will give us the chance to create inclusivity.
Now, let's look at the reports that have been commissioned in the past and presented. Are you prepared, still under driving the agenda of rule of law, to implement TJRC reports, Ndungoland reports? Which of these will you undertake to implement? Which ones will you leave out? Or which ones will you get guidance from or insights?
I have a list of priorities which I want to deal with. And my mind is very clear on what I want to do. My first priority is on how to re-engineer the economy for us to create the jobs I'm talking about. My second priority is to make sure that universal health, something that I have worked on ever since I came into office as Deputy President, is achieved, universal health coverage. It is possible for us, for every citizen of Kenya, to be able to go to hospital, be treated, and walk away without being asked for money because they have an insurance, a health insurance cover. Implementing the reports you have mentioned will form part of what we will do as a matter of course in government. But I have told you what my priorities are. Those reports, I'm not saying they are not important, they are very important, and they will form part of the enablers of what we will want to achieve as a government. For example, the TJRC reports, it has its own value, and it brings a sense of redress and brings closure to some of the things that have been outstanding for us as a nation. But I am very clear in my mind as to the priorities that I want this country to move with, because they are urgent as far as I'm concerned, and they are very important.
Economy. I mean, and that's what you said, you're going to change the narrative. And one could argue that indeed the narrative is all about economy that will bring inclusion. Unpack, because there are those who keep, with their own definition of your bottom-up approach. Now, to the evangelical, to the Christian faith, the Christians, to the residents of this country. Unpack very simply, what is this bottom-up economic approach or model that you have?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy we are discussing the economy, because that, in my opinion, is where the answer to many of the issues that are with us now. Bottom up is about inclusivity. It's about making sure that there is opportunity for everybody, that nobody is left behind. You have told me to contextualize it to the Christian fraternity. Let me go to the Bible. Psalms 113, verses 7 and 8 speaks to bottom up. It says, if you allow me in Kiswahili, because I have had occasion to speak to Kenyans many times. It says, Mungu umuinua mnyonge kutoka mavumbini, na Mungu humfanya fukara na maskini mpaka wakaketi meza moja na wafalme. Yeah? So bottom up, that's the explanation. We want to fashion a country where we get the majority of our citizens, number one, who are jobless. The people at the bottom of the pyramid are the millions of young people walking our streets, walking our villages, walking our markets with certificates and without jobs. That's why I insist that we must have a deliberate. I know many people here are learned. Dr. Okinde is here, Dr. Mukanda is here, and many more doctors. And we have been told they are real doctors, which means they have gone to school. We must have, it's no longer fashionable for us to say we will grow the economy and the economy will create jobs. No. It's possible to grow the economy without creating jobs. We must, for a first time, insist on growing the economy and making sure that that economy actually grows jobs. Yeah? So that is number one. Number two, the people at the bottom of the pyramid are the almost 10, 12, 14 million hustlers, if you may, you know, the people who do all manner of jobs, selling merchandise, people at the market, the mama mboga people, the people who make between 100 and maybe 300 shillings on a good day. And they are about 14 million of those people in Kenya. Yeah? A bit of statistics from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. People employed by corporates are about 2 million, maybe 2.5 million, including all the government employees. People employed by the formal sector, another 3 million people. A whole 14 million people are in this space. Micro, small, enterprise people. Those are the people we need to get to in two ways. Making sure They have a formal place for them to run their wares. I was in Trans Nzoia, for example, on Friday. No, on Sunday. I was in Trans Nzoia. And a lady was saying, you know, Mr. Deputy President, we pay 50 shillings every day to the county government, and we are selling our wares on the road. They haven't done nothing for us. They haven't built for us a market, but they come for the tax, you know. So these are the people. We need to get them a place to do their business. We need to make them access credit. And let me give you an example why this is very important. A lady called Shiro from Ruaka Market came to see me. And she told me, Mheshimiwa, I was born in Eldoret, but I work in this market. I'm a leader of the people in this market. Please help us, because we are being killed by Shylocks. When we borrow 1,000 shillings in the morning, in the evening, you must return that 1,000 shillings with 200 shillings on top. That is 20,000, that is 20% per day. Assuming even you work on half that, that's 10% per day. If you calculate it per year, it is 3,600% per year. That is the kind of interest the people, these 10 million people, pay to access credit. William Ruto and Bishop Okinde here, we access credit at 14% per year. So just look at the difference. 14% per year, 3,600 per year. Just making sure that these 10 million Kenyans have access to credit, and don't even say cheap credit, at the same level as Kenya Airways, Safaricom, or the big corporates access credit. If we just make them access credit at 14%, like everybody else, we will increase their earnings from 300 shillings to 700 shillings per day, just by sorting out credit. And in 8 years, we will double the size of the economy of Kenya. Yeah? And maybe when I say this, it looks simplistic. I used to think it is simplistic also, until I became deputy president and I realized that actually government can make things happen. That's why I said government can make the impossible happen. Miracles take slightly longer. Do you understand what I'm saying? So bottom up is about sorting out the millions of our young people who are jobless so that they can begin the journey to climb the economic ladder, have a job so that they can run their lives, run their families, and build our country. Getting the millions of people who are doing all these odd jobs and making sure that we have, they have access to credit, they have access to a good place to do business. We organize them. Johnson Sakaja is here. Instead of him running around with hawkers in Nairobi, formalize. We have said as a Kenya Kwanza administration, we have agreed with Johnson Sakaja here, who is our candidate for Nairobi, that with the few markets we have in Nairobi, we will build an extra 20 modern markets in the city of Nairobi alone, just as a way of getting the people who are hanging their wares all over the place into a formal place where they can do their business, and making sure that we get rid of contempt for the hassles of ordinary people. That's why I have said every hassle matters. And finally, just by way of responding to the bottom-up economic model, is to make sure that we not only promote, because we had a wonderful plan on agricultural transformation, to make sure that we increase the productivity of ordinary farmers. We have 12 million farming households, yeah, who are producing below what they should be producing. And all they need is access to fertilizer that is subsidized, access to good quality seed. A farmer who is producing 6-7 bags because they don't have the money to buy the right seed, they don't have the money to access fertilizer. If we made sure that they have access to fertilizer and access to quality seed, their 5 bags they are producing can be double. In just one season, you can double it. Let me give you another example, finally. We produce 5 billion liters of milk. 5 billion liters of milk. We are amongst the largest milk producers in the continent. If we are not number 1, we are number 2. That's Kenya, right? And we are doing, on average, maybe 3 liters per cow. 3 liters. And it's because we do not have the correct, we haven't thought about how to, about animal feed. We still import a lot of animal feed, raw materials, soya, canola, sunflower, simsim. We import all. I was having a discussion in Busia last week, and we were discussing simsim. Busia is actually the 4th poorest county in Kenya. I'm sorry, Bishop Okindo, I know that is your county. Neighboring county, sorry. Yeah? It's the 4th poorest county in Kenya. And yet, there exists huge opportunities in oil crops, starting with simsim, starting with soya, going to palm oil. You know, yet we are importing all this. And for your information, we are spending 190 billion Kenya shillings every year to import food items into Kenya, which we can grow. 190 billion Kenya shillings. Edible oil alone, 80 billion shillings of edible oil we are importing. And these are things we can grow. So, what am I saying? The people, the farmers who today are languishing in poverty, we can increase their incomes, actually double their incomes. Like the one of milk I told you, if we just get the correct animal feed by making sure that farmers grow sunflower, we grow soya, we make sure that we have enough raw material, we can actually, for every cow, forget about the cows that are producing 40 liters per day. Even if we just moved our average from 3 to 10, we would increase our milk production from 5 billion liters to 15 billion liters. Forget about 15 billion liters, 10 billion liters. Do you know what that will do? Milk will overtake all our horticulture and what as a foreign exchange earner. And that does not require 10 years. It requires 2 seasons, and we are there. So I am so clear in my mind as to how we can change this country in our lifetime. We don't have to wait for 20 years. We can change Kenya in 10, 15 years. And whoever was not in our country will not recognize it when they come back.
Now, all this that you've said is good and indeed can work, should work, must work. But when we are in a state of insecurity, then nothing gets realized. With every election cycle, unfortunately, insecurity seems to always crop up. We have ethnic mobilization. In recent times, we've had security lapses in Kerio Valley Triangle, Marsabit, Garissa, Laikipia, Lamu. We can only fear what might happen. That's a real fear. And it may even keep some away from turning up to vote, your voters and for others. So, what assurance are you giving the Kenyans that they should not incite against each other to be peaceful before, during, and after, practically speaking?
I think you've talked about, the issue you've raised has 3 facets from where I sit. We have insecurity because of criminals and crooks and terrorists and all these bad people, which we must firmly and decisively deal with as government. We had a program on making sure that we have police reservists in many of these areas. And in fact, we deployed extensively police reservists. In fact, some of the counties, like Turkana, I remember, even helped to pay stipend for some of these police reservists who are really helping with matter security. We must continue to invest in the software, in the human resource, and in the hardware to make sure that we secure ourselves from criminals. And we already have a reasonably big budget on matters to do with security. What we must do, however, is we must make sure that we get value for the resources we deploy in security. What will I do differently? I will make sure that buying guns is not a security issue. Why is buying a gun by the government? Why is it in mystery? Why is it in some dark room? Why? The guns are being carried all over in the streets by policemen. So what is the big deal? Today, they are classified as security purchases. So a gun that is supposed to be sold for 20,000 is bought at 60,000. Why? Oh, it's a security thing, so it cannot be done by open tender. It must be done in some dark room. It must be. I have been against those stories because these security, secret things, that is where corruption thrives. We must get, if we got value for the money we are putting in our security sector, we would get maybe twice or thrice the output we are currently getting. Right? Number 2, we must get the IG. What I will do is to get the IG his own budget. The Constitution says the IG is an independent office. Today, the IG doesn't have a budget. He relies on the office of the president for a budget. You know? And so he has to speak nicely to some people at the office of the president. Why? The IG is an independent office. When I ask somebody, why are we bringing matters to do with the Inspector General of Police? Why doesn't he have his own accounting officer when the Constitution says they should have its own accounting officer? Somebody was telling me, oh, you know, you can't give somebody guns and give them money. If they have guns, you must keep the money so that you keep, giving them enough for them not to cause trouble. First day, I will appoint an accounting officer for the Inspector General of Police and the Police Department and give them an independent budget and demand from them. Because if you are giving somebody his budget, you are unable to demand from them. Because they will say, but boss, we didn't get this money, we asked for this, we didn't get, we asked for this, we didn't get. So, make the Inspector General of Police truly independent, and then I will demand from them why this is not happening here, why this is not happening here, why this is not happening here. I have told you two things already on that. The other issue that is bringing about insecurity is, of course, poverty. You have all these young people. They are loitering our streets. They are out of school. They have no jobs. They become pickpockets. Then they become gangs. Then they become terrorists. So we have to deal with the matter of economic inclusivity, making sure that our young people have a job to do, they are meaningfully engaged, or they have credit to do business. And finally, is the third category of insecurity. The political gangs, sponsored, driven by politicians and politics. I am a strong believer that we need to institutionalize our politics around political parties. I am a very strong believer that the best way to move our politics away from personality cults and ethnicity is to build strong national parties. That is why I was very heartbroken when the party I spent so much time to build, called Jubilee, was destroyed. By tribalists, people who don't believe in Kenya. But thank God, I am not complaining too much, we have put together another national political party called UDA. Today, in every poll, UDA is the most popular party in Kenya. And it is because we believe that politics should be played around institutions of governance. Political parties must form the basis for canvassing our politics, so that our politics is about issues. It's not about the person. It's not about personality cults. It's not about the tribe of the person leading the party. It's about the issues the party stands for. And that is why today, whether you like it or not, if you speak about UDA, people will think about bottom-up more than they will think about William Ruto.
Now, as we get towards the end, in all these we need to have, and you mentioned, I think, in terms of the software side of things, national values. When we say chapter 6, I'm sure Dr. Ginde, it will not be about chapter 6 in the Bible, of any book that you pick. When you say chapter 6 in the Constitution, championing it, to what extent would your administration champion chapter 6? Because other things will fall in place no matter how well-intentioned and implementation of the economic model and other things come in.
That's a very important component of the Kenya we want. From where I sit, I think religion and education must be centralized in making sure that we have a country that has a moral compass. I have been accused of engaging in building churches. I have built as many mosques as well. And it is because I believe the church and religion and the belief in God by the people of Kenya is central to our success. I am happy that the church and religious institutions are beginning to realize that they can no longer remain neutral. There is this thing, the church keeps, oh, you know, we are neutral. But the Bible says you are either warm or you're cold. You can't be somewhere there. I don't know which part of the scripture is neutral. You know? Maybe I need to be schooled, you know? So I think the centrality of the believing God, the centrality of our religious institutions, the centrality of the church in making sure that we have a country that has morals. The influence of our religious institution in our education is very important. The church must take sides. I have always taken sides. I take sides on the side of God, always. And I am unapologetic. And I am unashamed. I believe in God. And I cannot go somewhere and then I say, oh, you know, I am neutral. I am not neutral. I am not neutral. I believe in God. The place of education, we have to continuously refine our education so that it speaks to the values of our society. The church, religious institutions, those who are Muslims and those who believe in God must have a stake in the Republic of Kenya. And I don't know whether there are many issues that the church want to raise with government. I know, for example, that the church have issues with the way taxation is fashioned in our country. Sometimes you're taxing the church for carrying out social activities, public good activities. There needs to be a discussion about that. There is the place of the church and owning property. What is the place of government in assisting the church to own public property that they can use for public good, to build a church, to build a rehab, to build a children's home, you know, and those kind of things. That's a discussion I am willing to have. But the church must step forward. You know, they cannot continue to be in a neutral place where they don't know whether they're going right or they're
Now,
And I'm saying this because
yes.
I'm a Christian,
Right.
and I'm speaking my heart, you know. I know, for example, that we've had issues with the registration of churches in Kenya. There's a moratorium, and it needs to be discussed. What is the nature of this moratorium? It is for how many days? What are the reasons? The church again must step forward and have a conversation with government. But the church also has an opportunity to install a government. Yes.
Excellent.
They have an opportunity to install a government. Instead of waiting until others install a government for you, and then you go and start complaining to the government, why don't you install the government yourselves?
But that's clear. And I think
given to people who don't vote or who don't get involved in matters politics is to be ruled by fools. So if we continue to be bystanders, you know, and let me say this, allow me to say this. The first time I thought of being a politician, and the first time I decided to show signs of wanting to be a politician, my very good friends who we were in our evangelistic team together. I remember one of them, he's a doctor today in Nakuru. He's called Dr. Enrich. They wanted to lay hands on me. How can you be a politician? You know, how can you be a politician? This is meant for people who don't know God, you know. That's a while back. I know we have made a lot of progress to where we are today, but you know, sometimes there are people who think that being in politics, they believe this narrative that politics is a dirty game. But the Bible says it's God who chooses leaders. It cannot be that God is involved in dirty stuff. I don't think so. So, I mean, just to speak the truth, the church needs to up her game.
one thing I can assure you, the church is not neutral on values, but neutral on the candidates. That without any fear of contradiction. Now, I'd like us to get into what I'd call a rapid fire session. We've received questions both online and from the audience here. Three, 4 questions, but brief, succinct. Of exclusion, pastoral communities, education-wise, your view?
The people from pastoral communities, I have called them myself, and they know it. I called all the MPs from the pastoral communities, and I told them, listen, you cannot continue to depend on teachers coming from the rest of the country. We are giving you opportunity to train teachers from the pastoral communities. I have paid for 100 teachers in Tana River, for example, to go to training myself at a personal level. And what we need to do, the big problem, for example, in northern Kenya, is that many teachers in northern Kenya come from Nairobi, Nakuru, Siaya, and all manner of places. Very few teachers, very few people in northern Kenya go for training as teachers. And the question I ask them, why do you make the teaching of your children the business of other people? Because when one gunshot is fired, the gentleman from Siaya will go to Siaya. But if that person came from that village in Wargadud or someplace in Wajir, whether 10 or 20 or 50 gunshots are fired, they will stay at home. And when the gunshots are over, they will go back and teach the children. It is as simple as that. So we need to persuade more of the people from pastoral communities to get their children to go to train as teachers, number one. And then number two, we as government, we have to increase our teacher-student ratio in those areas by hiring more teachers.
Related to the same, your position on free primary education. And is there anything such as free? Christ paid the price for us on the cross. It is not free. Salvation was
It's not free, it's paid for by government. I think free is just because the parents are not paying. But of course somebody is paying. And we are all paying through our taxes. So I think free maybe is maybe the wrong, the wrong way to put it. But it's paid for by us, by the government of Kenya, using public taxes.
So your position on that?
My position is that it's the right thing to do. I mean, we must never disadvantage any child from, if there is one thing we must do, we must arm every child with good education. What we need to do is to truly make it free. I think at the moment, there are still levies here and there. For example, I have heard some of our governors, and even my good governor here, Sakaja, they have promised as part of their manifesto that they will make sure that his county government will make sure that they have lunch for every child going to school so that we can retain more children in school. So lunch is an issue. Parents are being asked now to pay for lunch. It's a way of keeping more children in school. But maybe progressively, maybe that's a function county governments will take over so that we can have more children in school. And for your information, there are more children out of school in Nairobi than in Turkana. That's how serious matters education are in the city of Nairobi. So we really have to think about it.
Next question here. What's your agenda on drug abuse and alcoholism eradication, and how will you deal with drug peddlers?
Drugs is a big issue. I don't know whether it is only with the young people or it is even with everybody, including leaders. We have a very serious drug problem in our country. In fact, some two good bishops, they walked to my office about a year ago. Actually, it was Bishop Mark Kariuki and Bishop Masinde. And they told me, Mr. Deputy President, our children are looking at you leaders. Please, make sure you are giving a good example to our children. And the subject was about drugs, right? So it is a serious problem. And again, it goes back to the role of our religious institutions, the correct teaching standards in our schools, and of course, the example we set as leaders in the public space, and making sure that we are, because my daughter once came to me and asked me, is there anything wrong with taking wine? And for a minute, I didn't know what to say. I told her, yes, of course, there is everything wrong to taking wine. Oh, is that so? But I see very many people taking wine. You know, so we have a real issue as parents, you know. We have to take our responsibilities very seriously as parents. We have to take our place as leaders. The church needs to take its place. Our teaching institutions need to take their place. This requires an army to deal with, and it requires everybody to play their role. So I don't think it would be fair to apportion it and say it is this person who has failed or that person. We need a collective effort to be able to deal with the matter of drugs.
Wonderful, Bwana DP. We thank you for honoring our invitation. You didn't come alone. You came with
yes.
a couple of your colleagues
Okay.
and friends.
Okay.
We'd like to give you an opportunity to just invite them, recognize them, but if you may just go to the podium and make your sales pitch in terms of, let's hear as you make your remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Edmond, for bearing with me. I know I speak a lot. And maybe just on the one matter that you said, maybe before I go there, of course, I cherish the opportunity that I have been given to speak to this audience and to speak to others who are listening to us on other platforms. And to say, I'm very happy that the church, EAK, have provided this platform for many of us who are seeking opportunity to lead in various capacities, to be able to engage with you, to listen to some of the issues, and for you also to listen to us, so that you can make informed choices. Because the quality of the choice you make is dependent on the quality of the information you have. In our midst, I have friends who I came along with. I have Johnson Sakaja. Johnson Sakaja is not a new member here. I'm told that he was a member of the Sunday school here at some point, and he's running as governor of Nairobi, the city of Nairobi. I have Rigathi Gachagua. I think everybody knows him. He's currently the member of parliament for Madeira and a great leader in our nation. Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria keeps reminding me that he stopped. Did you say that, Moses? Yes. He stopped consuming alcohol, so And then we have George Sunguya. He's a member of parliament for Kajiado West. And we had other people here, maybe they have stepped out. Yeah. We had Kipchumba Murkomen somewhere, and they've stepped out. I think those are among the people who came along with me. And maybe just finally, let me say three things. Number one, in this election, I have very worthy competitors. And I appreciate them. But in that context, I ask for your vote. And we have a plan. We have discussed this plan. And because we are serious about implementing that plan, we have gone to every county, sat down with the people in every county, and taken them through our plan and asked them for their input. And we intend to sign a charter with every county of our country on their priorities, on what they expect the government of Kenya to do the next 5 years. On matters to do with how we are going to get jobs, on matters to do with how we are going to put food on the table, on matters to do with how we are going to change our economy so that it works for everybody, and on the very important matter of making sure that everybody has access to medical, to healthcare. So these are the primary issues. They are not the only issues, but they are the priority issues we think will take our country to the next level. And finally, because I do not want to speak more than that, Modibo has said something which is very interesting. He said the church is not neutral on matters to do with values, but they are neutral on matters to do with candidates, which is fine, and I respect that. But I want somebody to explain to me what the Bible means when it says in Galatians 6:10 that as you find opportunity, do good to all men, but especially those of the house of faith. I don't expect an answer from you, but just think about it. Thank you very much.
If you kindly just remain, tafadhali, Bwana DP. Bwana DP, I would like you to remain on stage as I invite Dr. Makanda for this final session. We are in charge, and I'm sure he will make the appropriate response. Wisdom calls for it.
Please be seated. Be seated. Be seated. Since our brothers are here, I presume that the rhetoric question meant that he's a member of the household of faith. That's what I think he presumed we will get. So that, Your Excellency, you are not alone. Yes. It's just that, Your Excellency, you are not alone. You have you can see there are others from the household of faith. This is not to put them on a panel. The two have already made their remarks and done their pitching. But we believe that since you have come, and we will do so for the others when they accept our invitation and come. Yesterday we expected yourself, Deputy President, and the Honorable Prime Minister. Unfortunately, both of you, we had some, I think Safaricom failed to deliver our messages or something like that, or Airtel, one of those channels. And so you are not able to come, but you came today. We are hoping that the Honorable Prime Minister will make time. We have asked him to give us a date. We are waiting for it. And when he does, we will give him a similar opportunity to be able to pitch and to speak to us. And we will honor him in that manner. You know, there is somebody who talked about, Deputy President, you said you are the only one in Bomas. But I hope you remember that there was Jerusalem dance in Bomas. Yeah, so you're not alone. We were also there. Yes, about Jerusalem dance. And so I would like to ask that people who are running as candidates that are this side to stand up. You might have been in this entourage or not, or our delegates, just stand up. Okay. Any candidate, anybody running for any seat that is in this crowd. Some came with the Deputy President, some came as our delegates, and others with the other candidates. Just stand up. we would like to have some time to pray for all of you and to present you before God, to protect you, and to give you a good run across the country. Okay, if you like to stand. Edmund, are you running? Okay, thank you. You're not running? Okay, thank you. So then sit, you sit. Yes, you sit, thank you. So I would like to ask the chairman, because this is his meeting, he will make a decision of how to pray for these men and women that have offered themselves for leadership in this country. Bishop David Oginde.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, thank you for availing yourselves, and thank you, DP, for insightful discussions this morning. We have been truly informed and educated on several matters, and I'm sure our leaders are in a better position both to make decisions and help their members make decisions based on the things that they are hearing. As we mentioned, we are giving this opportunity to all our candidates, presidential candidates. Mr. Sakaja there has just whispered to me, and when are the governors coming? So it means that he's appreciating that this is a good idea. So we'll see how to make that happen. But we truly appreciate. There are 47 independent candidates for the position of president. Independent. Then those who are in parties, I don't know how many they are. So the competition is very high. And a number of them are also believers. So we will hear that especially many times. So God will give us wisdom on how to go about it. But thank you very much. So we were not able to invite everybody to this forum just because of the limitations of time. So we made a choice, maybe wrongly or rightly, to bring first of all those who have been in the field for quite a long time and whose names are out there in the lips of the public. That is the Deputy President, William Ruto, and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who are leading the main political formations in this country, to come and share with us their views. But we have also those people who are from inside the church, members of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. And these are the two candidates who are in that category. So that is how we tried to deal with the issue of numbers, because there's a very large number. So it is not discriminatory, but it's basically to see how do we manage the time that we have. Given another opportunity, we may invite others to also join us. So at this time, we want to pray together with you and just commit you to the Lord, so that as you go out there, God will go before you and God will make a way for you. Ours is to cast the vote. That's what the Bible says, that the decision of that vote is determined by the Lord. So I want to ask our Vice Chair to come and lead us in praying for these candidates. Our Vice Chair is a very passionate prayer warrior. And so if you keep seeing him coming here, it's because we are utilizing the talents that we have and the gifts in the house. If there is anything that palpates in his heart, is prayer. So every time we're in board meeting, he keeps saying, why don't we pray? Some of us are business oriented. But Vice Chair, please call on the name of the Lord on behalf of these men and women, so that God would go before them.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to be praying extremely shortly. My name is Joseph Likavo. I come from Eldoret. Your Excellency, my former Member of Parliament. Thank you so much. I would like to mention just some things, and I'll ask all of us to stand and pray together with them. I want to recommend a small book to you, a small book done by Professor Kinoti. I've mentioned that